I do have something. So I know I've changed the credits an awful lot,
Uh-huh.
but I came up with a funny idea the other day. I
Uh-oh.
came up with a funny idea, and I just wanted to run it by you.
Okay.
What if in the credits I refer to Silas as the cowboy?
Sure. Like in that tone of voice.
Yes, like specifically the cowboy.
You know what? I give my blessing.
Oh, good. Good. I'm so happy. I hadn't, it's not like I've recorded it already or anything, but like,
Mm-hmm.
I just, I'm really excited about, the cowboy
You
doing
had
all our audio editing.
you had a lot, emotionally speaking, riding on that
I
being
was in,
approved.
I was very invested in
Mm-hmm.
approval of the cowboy. In the modern day, one might regard the Disney Corporation as one with an unlimited budget and an all-encompassing grasp when it comes to creativity. But what if I were to tell you that there was once a time when quite the opposite was true? What happens when the circumstances are so dire that cash and creativity are both thinly stretched as to be threadbare? What does one find at the very back of the bottom shelf in a room of shelved ideas? Gold or grime? What does the worst Scottish accent in the world sound like? And more importantly, we ask the question, has this company finally learned how to draw horses? Hi, my name is Nate Conrad. This is my friend, Abby Rose. Today we close the chapter in Disney history known as the wartime era, or the package film era, with the feature films Melody Time and The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. Join us as we hold hands and walk together into the end of Season 2, leaving behind all the scrimping, saving, and repurposing as we continue dissecting the mouse.
It's like the thing where you have so many different tasks to do that you just don't do anything.
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, that paralysis. I
That's
know that
Yep.
well. I live with that bitch.
Yeah, me too. And that's what this has been, because it's not just that we're doing 2 movies, which is a lot, but we're doing Ichabod and Toad has 2 films, essentially, 2 smaller stories, and then the
Mm-hmm.
other, Melody Time, has 7. So that in itself is like 9 individual little things that we have to do plot outline and source material and bleh. So it's
Yeah.
just been a rough starter. And I got COVID.
Oh, yeah, Abby, you got COVID.
And it wasn't even my fault. I mean, not
We've
that,
gone from medicinal stab wound to the plague.
yeah, but whatever. Whatever. Stay home, guys. Wear masks. Do all the things.
Wear masks. It's the smart thing to do. It's the polite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, it's the bare minimum that anyone can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for anybody who still is like, does COVID really exist? I don't know.
Yes.
You are not allowed to listen to our podcast. It's like
Yeah,
how Jim Gaffigan, sorry I interrupted you, but I was gonna say, it's like how Jim Gaffigan says, you're allowed to eat ranch on pizza. You just can't vote. You just can't vote anymore. Like
that hurts.
you're allowed to think COVID's a myth. You're just not allowed to listen to our podcast anymore.
Abby, will you think less of me if I tell you that there are some pizzas I will put ranch on?
I won't, because I think it's a choice, but then again, I think ranch is more acceptable than the other type that you prefer that I do not like.
What do you mean, like barbecue sauce?
Pineapple and ham.
Oh, that's pineapple and ham is what I eat ranch with.
Oh my god. Well, at least you lump all your sins together. At least it's all just
Get
taken
all
care
out of the way
of.
at once.
Yay.
Yay.
On our Good Christian podcast where we talk about Johnny Appleseed.
Good Christian. He really is a young buck. He's a good Christian boy.
He's a good Christian boy. And we get to talk about my crush today.
It's not Johnny Appleseed?
It is not Johnny Appleseed.
Oh no.
It is Mr. Washington Irving. I had the biggest crush on him when I was younger.
I am so excited to hear about, because I've heard about your crush on Washington Irving, and I'm so excited to hear the world hear about your crush on Washington Irving.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm not judging you.
No, it's okay.
You've shown me a picture. I understand.
Yeah, he was a cute little boy. I will say I held back. I didn't do like a biography on Washington Irving. I probably should have. I don't know. Or maybe not, but most of my source material I tried to scale back and made it just about the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. So
valid.
I suppose.
So, Abby.
So, Nate.
I'm very glad to be sitting down with you and recording. For listeners won't know this, but we're recording for the first time in like 3 months.
Yes, it's been a few seconds since we.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Things
it's been
have
a while since I said sorry. I don't remember the lyrics.
It's been a while. That's all anybody remembers.
Yeah, because it's been a while since I've heard that song.
Oh!
And it's been a while since we've recorded.
It has.
But now we're back from outer space.
I just walked in to find you here, sitting in the booth and recording.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Full circle. So what did we watch today?
We watched Melody Time, and we watched The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which I have always abbreviated just to Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which I have super abbreviated to Icky Toad.
Hey, me too.
Yeah, it's a great name.
Yep, Icky Toad.
It's good enough for the White Stripes. It's good enough for us.
It certainly is that.
The White Stripes have that song, Icky Thump.
Oh, I didn't know that. I thought you were about to explain to me who the White Stripes are, and I'm like, I will punch you through the computer.
I am not going to mansplain to my most tied for second most musical friend, who the White Stripes are.
Tied for second? Wow.
Yeah, it's you and Taylor, because, like, he also knows an awful lot about music, and he's been involved in, like, music before. And, it's both of you below Phil, who is in a band.
Yeah, I am not in a band. I'm in a sort of, like, choir band thing, because my sister roped me into her music stuff, so I sing with them and leads and stuff, but not like a band. Anyway, so, yes, Icky Toad and Melody Time, and they're both package features. They're the last two on our agenda, and then we can go back to our one movie an episode. Thank the good sweet Lord.
I lost the plot, but
okay.
Anyways,
I can elucidate. Would you like me to go into the plot outline?
Oh, absolutely! Would love you to do the plot outline.
That was supposed to be such a good setup, and then I broke out my elucidate.
I
could have said that in a way better way.
No, elucidate's a great word. It's
been a while since I've been in front of a microphone.
It's been a while.
Okay. Shush. Now, yeah, so plot outline. I did these in opposite order accidentally, because for some reason in my mind it's always been Ichabod and Toad first, and then Melody Time. I don't know why. Yeah. And it doesn't really matter. I'm sure the listeners do not care. But technically Melody Time did come out a year before Icky Toad. Melody Time came out in May 1948, and then Icky Toad came out in October 1949. So, really? But I'm gonna do Ichabod and Toad first.
Yes, please.
So for The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, I'd like to think of this double feature as Rock On, You Confident Bastard, Parts 1 and 2.
Nice.
So, for Rock On, You Confident Bastard, Part 1, aka The Wind in the Willows, we head over to the countryside of Berkshire, England, where animal and man alike are pissed at Mr. J. Thaddeus Toad, local aristocrat and owner of his ancestral home, Toad Hall. Why are Animal and Man pissed off at Mr. J. Thaddeus Toad, you may ask? Well, simply because Toad suffers from an acute case of mania, where he becomes utterly obsessed with a new fad and puts everything else aside to pursue his latest obsession with no thought for anything else. Of course, that is, until the next new thing comes along and triggers his hyperfixation all over again. So basically, he's in
ADHD.
I was just gonna say, so basically, he's in an entire ADHD mood.
Icon.
Total ADHD Chad. So, witnessing this ongoing spectacle are Toad's friends, Rat, Mole, and Badger. Rat and Mole, I never thought I'd say this about two characters from a 40s cartoon adaptation of a 9th century British children's story, but by God do I ship it, are two charming little bachelors, while Badger is an older bloke in firm possession of the worst Scottish accent I have ever heard.
It's so bad.
As dubious as I was about the bongo animators having ever seen a bear before, I'm even less convinced this voice actor even knew what Scotland was, let alone that he had any inkling of what a Scottish person sounds like. Anyway, despite the attempts by... I mean, it's a real festival of nations. He pulls out accents from pretty much every country and or continent on this earth. And only accidentally stumbles into Scottish a few times.
A hen hoose.
Oh my gosh! At one point,
That's
I'm like,
the one time.
At one point, I'm like, is he from Baghdad? Like, what? Why? How is he doing this? It's almost impressive.
Mech Badger, the famous Iranian family.
Yeah. So anyway, despite the attempts by his friends to get him to tone it down and chill the heck out before he bankrupts himself and brings Toad Hall to ruin, our J. Thaddy hops right on to his newest obsession, motor car mania. Thanks to some weaselly weasels and a greasy, grinning barkeep, Toad is arrested for stealing a motor car and is sentenced to prison, despite insisting that he completely legally traded the car for Toad Hall. Dubious financial decisions aside, Toad is broken out of prison by his friend Cyril, a Cockney-accented horse who is a real peach and a delight, but I still haven't quite reconciled with his role as both Toad's friend and his means of transportation.
I love him.
I love him too. He's he's still not quite horse-shaped, but it's done in a way where he's the horsiest horse that I've ever seen.
Right, his personality makes him a horse. This has been a real festival of these are real horses. The nicest thing I can say about these two movies is that Disney finally figured out how to do a horse.
The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, aka, yep, those are horses.
Yes!
Definitely horses. So, yes, and he's awesome. And apparently he was voiced by this guy whose name I don't remember, he's from Lancashire and regarded as one of the funniest guys in the early 20th century. He did a bunch of different stage musicals and a few voice acting credits, but he was regarded as a freaking awesome improv guy and really funny dude.
Would you say they called him a bit of a trotter and a bit of a rotter?
How do you do? How do you do? How do you do? It's quite excellent. I highly recommend watching this, even if just for Cyril. I mean, this whole thing is a delight, but
yeah.
Especially Cyril. Yes, so it's all good because Toad rallies his friends to take Toad rallies his friends to take
the tallest Hode I've ever seen.
Tally Hall. It's the good music artist.
I miss Tally Hall.
Yeah. Toad rallies his friends to take Toad Hall back from the assholes who framed him for the theft, and they live happily ever after. Until, of course, he comes down with airplane mania.
Yep.
Yay!
He got a horse and an airplane.
Yep. All right. So, on to The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, yeah. Snoozy.
Yeah.
Snoozy.
Sure. We open on a charming little Dutch settlement in the countryside of New York State, where Bing Crosby's silky voice informs us that legends and superstition run rampant through these isolated communities. One such legend starts now, with Mr. Ichabod Crane coming up over the hill. He's the new schoolmaster in town, and it is with the purest of joy that I will inform you that what commences is an entire song solely dedicated to telling us that Ichabod is weird-looking as hell, but to the women of the town, entirely irresistible. I mean, it's the perfect inverse of the opening song from Beauty and the Beast. So instead of she's a beauty but a funny girl, we have he's weird looking but a sex machine.
He's Rod Stewart, huh?
He's truly, there's literally a line that says like he has this irresistible draw about him or something like that. It's so funny. And it's consistent, like not even just like the, homely looking girls of the town. It's everyone, even Freddy's girls are after Mr. Ichabod. The best part though is that Mr. Crane is after one thing and one thing only: food. He's like if Jughead had an agenda. So anyway, our knobby, awkward Mr. Crane charms his way through the whole town, much to the delight of the women and the chagrin of the men. One such man, local hunk Brom Bones, is pissed to suddenly find himself a rival to Ichabod for the affections of Katrina, the lovely daughter of the local rich dude. Now, to be fair, Brom seems to be the only one of the three who is truly in it for love. Yeah. Ichabod is out to inherit her father's fortune, whereas Katrina herself is only in it to watch the two of them fuss over her. Even from the beginning, it's clear that Ichabod is on the winning side of the fight for Katrina's affections. Seeing this, Brom decides to become the asshole we all assumed he'd be, and takes advantage of Ichabod's scaredy cat nature by feeding him a ghost story about a headless Hessian squatting in the woods leading to town, waiting to terrorize anyone dumb enough to pass through after dark. As it turns out, Ichabod is one such dummy, and runs into the headless horseman on his way back to town that night. Scared shitless with a horse equally so, he's chased through the woods and finally disappears, never to be seen or lusted after again. Some rumors say he's shacked up with some rich widow eating to his heart's content, but all the locals agree that the horseman added another head to his collection. The hedagogue of a pedagogue.
Aren't you funny?
Aren't I, though?
Aren't you?
I'm not, actually.
You are.
Well, we'll see.
Thank you. You're almost as funny as I am.
Oh, thanks. And
I'm the best.
We're both somewhat funny, which is why we have a podcast.
Right, yeah. If people are mildly amusing, they just do a podcast in 2021.
Yeah. That is the way. So, now we move on to melody time.
Yeah.
Oh, you sound so eager.
No, I'll keep my opinions to myself until it's opinion time.
Yeah. Oh.
Come on, let's get this over with.
Was that what we were supposed to? We're supposed to keep our opinions to ourselves? Because I did not do that.
No, we're allowed to put our opinions wherever we want to. I could say that Melody Time deserves all the hatred on Amazon reviews that Make Mine Music gets, but I won't say that until much later.
Okay, well, I look forward to that when it does happen. Yeah. So, this film is yet another popular music version of Fantasia. It has 7 segments, some more musical while others are more narrative. There's Once Upon a Winter Time, Bumble Boogie, The Legend of Johnny Appleseed, Little Toot, Trees, Blame It on the Samba, and Pecos Bill. For time and sanity's sake, I'm really only going to outline the plots of Johnny Appleseed and Pecos Bill. The others, for the most part, are just fluff pieces, though Little Toot has some of that early Disney fever dream flavoring we've come to know and love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And don't feel bad if you have characters on your list that I don't cover, because it doesn't really matter. It's just characters that stood out to you.
Right, yeah, no, yeah. I don't... We present what we present.
That was a really...
Oh, nice.
That was a horrible... I was trying because I felt it, and then for some reason it just didn't... I don't know. It was weird.
It was honest, though. It was an honest and genuine one.
Yeah.
I could feel the heart in it.
It felt weird. It felt like there was, like, a demon growling in my throat rather than an actual burp.
Those are the best ones, to be honest.
It's revenge for Little Toot. So, let's start with Johnny Appleseed. Part evangelical cartoon, part history lesson, part agricultural expose. This is the story of real American pioneer and actual cinnamon roll John Chapman, or as he's more widely known, Johnny Appleseed. He walked all over the northeastern U.S. with a tin pot as a hat and no shoes on his feet, planting apple nurseries and preaching Christianity wherever he went. In the cartoon, a young Johnny watches all the settlers going out west and wishes he could go with them, but figures since he's not a rootin'-tootin' rifle-shootin' tough guy, there'd be no place for him out yonder. At that moment, he's visited by his guardian angel, a grizzled fella garbed in the clothes of a pioneer and equipped with the twangy accent of a frontiersman. According to his angel, even a weak-ass nurseryman like John had an important role to play out west, so he needed to get going while the getting was good. So he did. Planted a bunch of apple trees, made some animal friends, told everyone within earshot about the big eternal party upstairs, then eventually joined that party himself. The end. Yay.
That's the whole thing,
That's
really.
The whole thing. I was like, oh, I'm going to go into more than like the apple parties and the nope. There's no reason.
He doesn't really have adventures in the Adventures of Johnny Appleseed. He has singular adventure.
That's true. That's true. He doesn't really, yeah. Because he's not like an adventuring sort. He's like a walk around and make friends with people sort.
Yeah.
You
It's
know.
like that, what was that? Somebody did a playthrough of World of Warcraft where they did it just on a walking tour and not like fighting anybody.
Oh, that was, I think Griffin McElroy did that.
Yeah,
He did. That
Griffin.
was so funny. It was.
That's just the Legend of Johnny Appleseed,
Yeah,
but planting trees.
pretty much. So that was Johnny Appleseed, and then we'll go on to Pecos Bill. I hated this one. Honestly, I really hated this one.
Really?
So this was supposedly based on a real folk hero, but we'll get into that.
Oh.
In the meantime, this is a troubling short about a mad feral dude down in Texas shooting everything in sight and terraforming the southern United States and Mexico, along with his homicidal horse Widowmaker.
Literally mad feral. Like,
just freaking mad feral. I'm like, are we supposed to be rooting for this guy? Like, is this supposed to be the good guy?
I'm not against him, but like he was in fact raised
Yeah.
by coyotes.
Yeah. Well, and I
But
hated
I'll get into that.
And I hated the kind of single story nature of him making the Rio Grande and like the, terraforming all of these places in southern US and in Mexico. Like
Mhm.
it was so insulting to like the idea of a creation myth. And it's like, it was a cowboy that did it. It wasn't any, actual real legends. It was a fake cowboy. Anyway,
Well, that's the story of the
Yeah.
American perception of the cowboy. You
Yeah.
just take what other people have do and say, yeah, white guy did it.
It's actually a perfect, if you think about it that way, it's a perfect microcosm of that sort of phenomenon. Like it's a perfect example is like the Pecos Bill story. Yeah, and Widowmaker, his horse, who literally is named Widowmaker because he has trampled so many men to death with his hooves. They say that. They say that to freaking child actress Luana Patton, and she goes, oh, ho, ho, that's so silly. Like,
that's amazing.
damn, okay, Luana. Cool.
And I like how they tell that in like the story. They
Mhm.
say, "Oh, we trampled many men," and then it turns out no, he's just been Bill's horse since they were children.
Yeah.
He's never trampled anyone to death.
Yeah.
But he got his name from trampling so many men to death.
Mhm.
But they've been friends since they were children.
Yeah. But
Don't think about it too much.
I was gonna say it might have just happened off screen. We don't know.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
It's in the meantime. So one day Bill falls in love with Slewfoot Sue, who's one of Freddy's girls if I've ever seen one. And
Mhm.
despite his horse's abject murderous intent towards her, Bill asks her to marry him. She accepts, but only if he'll give her a big fancy bustle like the ladies wear in the city. Her other condition is that she gets to ride his horse. The big day comes and she hops on the horse, but the bustle is apparently spring-loaded because she bounces right off the horse and keeps bouncing until presumably passing through the ozone layer and into outer space. As someone who would do anything to remain as far away from Pecos Bill as possible, I can honestly say I'm more than a little jealous of her fate.
Ha!
And that's all I have for Pecos Bill. That's all I could force myself to write about Pecos Bill.
That's the most you could care about him.
Yeah, and that's the most I could care about either of these two movies. But now that I've covered that, what do you have to tell me about the characters?
Oh, the characters. I can tell you, I really, I normally try to restrict myself to 15.
Mm-hmm.
I went one over,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of these are like really short. So I'm just going to tell you about my 16 absolute favorite characters.
I thought you were going to say my 16 absolute chads.
Oh, there are some flops in this. There are some non-chads.
Cool.
I did it backwards from you. I did Melody Time first. So the first one I'll tell you about is the terrifying mask. He's the introduction to Melody Time. He's not in it very much. You know, yeah, just enough to see his nightmare visage. Not unlike Dracula, he brings with him 3 equally horrifying brides. That's all I got for him.
Yeah, I actually completely forgot that was even a thing.
Oh no, he'll haunt my nightmares. Like, his face will haunt my nightmares.
I think he looked like a theater mask, which is why I was less...
He looked like both theater masks at the same time.
Yeah.
And then they gave him 3 wife masks, and I'm like, why? What is the purpose of that?
He's polygamask.
Oh, aren't you funny? So we move on from there to
there goes my last
one
brain
of my
cell.
favorite your last brain cell pooped that one out, and I loved it. I hope it gives you enough serotonin to produce more.
It doesn't, but hopefully we'll just move on and see what happens.
We'll move on to the button-nosed doofus. One of a pair of wintertime lovers whose main character trait is that he lacks the common courtesy to not laugh at his date for not knowing how to skate, despite him being very talented. Isn't that just what you love in a guy? Someone who mocks you for not knowing how to do what he's pretty much an expert at.
Yeah. That's why I didn't cover most of the stories in Melody Time, because I'm like, I don't like these characters and I don't like these shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from there we move on to the Bumblebee. An innocent pawn in this absolute nightmare of a sequence where everything tries to murder at him, at first for no reason, and then in retaliation to him fighting back against everything trying to murder him. So, he lives in probably the worst Disney peyote experience possible.
He's in the Peyote Vision Quest, but he's like actually lucid and sober.
Yeah.
So he's fighting for his life rather than going with it. I think, isn't it to the Bumblebee? It's like to
to a jazz version of Flight of the Bumblebee, which I love Flight of the Bumblebee, and I like jazz. I did not care for that song, that arrangement.
I didn't either. It just made me really anxious.
Yeah. And then it doesn't help when you're just watching this adorable little one-off character getting murdered.
Yep. Oh, well.
So let's move on to someone we can both agree that we like a little bit more. John Chapman, a.k.a. Johnny Appleseed.
Yay.
There's a statue of Johnny Appleseed in the library where I work, and that statue makes him look kind of handsome in a scrawny, quirky, Caucasian actor kind of way. The kind of handsome where you have to ask, is he handsome or is he just skinny with a beard? And the answer never becomes clear.
Nope.
This Johnny Appleseed does not have that problem. He's the least sexy John Chapman humanly possible. Prone to hallucinations of religious figures in squirrel skin hats, this little dude, obsessed with apples and doing good things and the work of the Lord, goes out into the wilderness and becomes the second Disney princess to have sweet woodland friends follow him around.
I was gonna call him a Disney princess in my notes, but I'm like, if it's gonna happen, Nate's gonna be the one to say it.
I'm gonna be the one to say it. I'm gonna be the one to notice he's the second Disney princess talking to animals. One of those animals is Chip the Chipmunk. It's just the same design as Chip from Chip and Dale. Apparently he decided to do some solo work without his pal Dale. And yeah, I am going on the record to say there is only one Disney chipmunk with a black nose who cackles like a deranged falsetto.
Mm-hmm. That's like half character description and half crackpot theory.
Yeah, no. I mean, he likes to eat and laugh at others' misfortunes. Toe to tip, that's a Chip.
That is a Chip.
Mm-hmm. Little Toot. I was going to talk about Little Toot, but first I have to ask the question. On the front of Big Toot, his dad, is that a beard or is that chest hair?
I thought it was like a coat.
That could be possible, because I was just spending the whole time staring at him, wondering why a boat would have a beard or chest hair.
Yeah. I don't
Anyways,
think they have, like, organic material. They can't grow organic material.
They have, like, equivalences, like they have eyebrows.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Little Toot.
Anyways, Little Toot is a hyperactive, immature, disappointing son. Relatable. You ever wonder, what if Pedro the airplane was as horrifying as it was obnoxious? Well, here's that. He screws up so badly that he must be banished from civilization and into the wilderness, as his father is disgraced to the level of a garbage scow. But hey, don't worry about it, because, he saves the day, rescuing a wrecked ocean liner. Don't worry about it. All is forgiven. Pay no attention to the vaguely threatening world of living inanimate objects that one would be horrified to find themselves in. Little Toot saves the day!
And then he's like, he's banished out to sea, and then there's just this, like, minute and a half of, I don't even remember what they said, but the lyrics were horrifying. I think I've blocked it out. That's why I can't remember. Of just, like, psychological abuse of this little child tugboat.
It's so weird to have to block out something by the Andrews sisters.
I know. Man, that should have been like a Halloween special or something, because it was genuinely terrifying.
Unsettling.
It was unsettling.
Yeah. But we move on to what should have been one of our favorite things. Donald Duck and Jose Carioca. That's right. Our favorite pair of amorous avians are back, but they're all grumpy and depressed. Maybe because they've been rejected by Yaya again. Or maybe because they've lost their new best friend who gave them such nice matching hats. Or maybe because they don't get any lines in this goddamn picture. At any rate, they run into their other new best friend, the Araquan bird, for some reason, who cheers them up by mixing them a drink. Literally, he mixes them into a drink. Roy Rogers was another character in this. Delivered, as promised, your rootin' tootin' king of cowboys, America's best cowboys, and I'm going to stand by that. John Wayne was a fascist, and Clint Eastwood is the Toshiro Mifune you get at the dollar store. Adam Page is coming up as a close second, nipping at his heels.
Stop.
While hanging out with Luana Patton and Bobby Driscoll, he also exists to create the frame story. You see that, Abby?
Yeah!
I learned from what you taught me.
You did it. You took my thing and you turned it into your thing. I'm proud.
I did it! Well, when you put it like that, it doesn't sound like I'm paying homage to you.
Yeah. I'm wearing I feel proud and warm. Like I have a beard chest hair coat.
Good.
On my chest, around my heart.
I'm so glad about your hairy bearded chest that warms you with joy.
Yes, you should be.
Anyway,
Roy Rogers.
Roy Rogers. He creates the frame story in which we get the story of Pecos Bill. Pecos Bill, raised and nursed by coyotes. I shit you not, nursed by coyotes. We see this happen. The boy was raised on coyote milk. I laugh, but I'm not laughing out of I'm laughing because I can't believe that we get a Disney short where a young boy drinks coyote milk straight from the chuck wagon, as they say.
It's a panicked laugh. It's panicked laughter.
It's a nervous laugh. It's a you're so funny as you make quips before murdering me laugh.
Yes, exactly.
Makes friends with a horse, does legendary cowboy shit, and maybe just a tiny little bit of massive racism.
Yay! Wouldn't be early Disney if we didn't have a little bit of massive racism.
Wouldn't have been. And of course, his life as a legendary cowboy who smokes, censored by Disney, and shoots guns, totally uncensored by Disney, is interrupted when he meets Slewfoot Sue, a woman who, I shit you not, is introduced rodeo riding a giant catfish and it's never addressed. I'm thinking that maybe in the original legend it makes sense. Maybe it's explained in some way, but not here. So she's just casually rodeo riding a giant catfish. And of course I'm instantly in love with her because she's just casually rodeo riding a giant catfish.
Yeah, she's like, you know what? Screw noodling. I'm not even going to go noodling. I'm just going to like start rodeo riding this giant catfish.
Right, yeah, we see this happen once. No explanation, has no bearing on the rest of the story, and I'm in love.
Well,
she also...
I guess it's to show, like, how good of a rodeo rider she is, because if you can, like, ride on, like, a fish, that's, like, the slipperiest, most annoying... I mean, fishes are, especially catfish, are, like, pretty much all muscle, so it's, like, it shows that she's really, really, really good at what she does. That's
right. Legendary cowgirl shit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, murdered by a horse.
Yeah.
Yeah. She is literally like, one thing that Abby, you didn't mention was like, Pecos Bill goes to save her with his lasso, and Widowmaker is the one who stomps on the lasso and prevents him from saving her.
Yeah.
So she is literally functionally murdered by a horse.
Yeah. I actually wrote it up without like going back and looking over the plot because that's how little I cared about this stupid short. But yeah. Honestly, though, good for her. Good for her.
And can I just say, like, Blue Shadows on the Trail, great little segment.
Mm-hmm.
When they're singing the song and you see all the nightlife desert animals.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's sleepy, but it's so cute.
Mm-hmm.
And trees, again, that's sleepy, but it's so cute. I'm in love with the trees short. Yeah, but there's no characters in that, so I couldn't talk about it.
Yeah, it's just a tree and a poem about a tree.
What I can talk about is J. Thaddeus Toad,
Yay.
Esquire.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, I gotta state that this world is the polar opposite of the Little Toot world. That is, as I said, a vaguely threatening world of living inanimate objects that one would be horrified to find themselves in.
Mm-hmm.
This is a vaguely whimsical world of sentient and civilized animals that I would be delighted to find myself in.
Yeah.
And this dude is the richest sentient and civilized animal who everyone loves because he makes all the other sentient and civilized animals look good by comparison. Anyways, he's an absolute maniac for fads, at the cost of his life and livelihood even, relatable.
Yeah.
I kind of did a 3-for-1 here. Rat, Mole, and McBadger.
I was going to do the same thing. Whenever I was going to be doing the characters, I wound up doing the same thing. That's funny.
They're a package deal. The 3 of them are the only folks with any common sense in this world. 3 of the 4 best friends Toad has. They prove this by doing his taxes and locking him in his room to prevent him from upsetting the homeowners association any further. Also, they're Christians for some reason. I wonder if their Jesus was like a hamster or something.
Are they Christians?
They celebrate Christmas.
You can celebrate Christmas and not be Christian.
I mean, that's only in America.
No.
Or maybe in England.
As somebody who as somebody who has become as obsessed with anime as I have, trust me, plenty of other countries besides America have non-Christians celebrating Christmas.
That's fair. I completely forgot about the Japanese Christmas obsession with KFC, which is so weird, right?
I haven't. That wasn't the context that I was gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, cross that bridge when we find it.
But anyway, they could be vaguely Christian or just kind of. I don't know.
Yeah, they can be Christian, they can be, Catholic, they can be a Calvinist, they can be Baptist, whatever they
celebrate Christmas, and they're
3 of the 4 best friends of Toad.
Yep.
You know who the 4th is?
Cyril Proudbottom.
Cyril Proudbottom. I can't get enough of this dude.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, he's a horse. He's just a horse, but he also talks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this dude, he baffles me. Okay, all the animals wear clothes, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And when he's in court, in a court of law, he wears a suit, a great suit that I love to death.
But any other time.
When he's pulling the cart, he's only wearing a hat. Is he nude? Is he just nude, tearing through the country?
Butt-ass naked, yes. Yes, sir.
He's nude when he's just walking down the street. What are the rules in this world?
Hey, that's why he said he's a bit of a tota, a bit of a rota.
Literally, that's the last line I have written here. Anyways, he's a bit of a trotter and a bit of a rotter. Same hat.
Same hat. It's Cyril's hat.
It's Cyril's beautiful little hat.
Yeah.
After him, we see the weasels. And these are worth pointing out because this is, I'm pretty sure, their first appearance in the Disney canon. And we'll see them in shorts in animal-related movies from time to time as the goons and thugs and mooks and whatnot. In this installment, they report to a deceitful, nasty, villainous little man with a hairstyle identical to his mustache. Those weasels are his goons and thugs and mooks and whatnot, local bar owner and car thief. His name and I shit you not, Mr. Winky.
Mr. Winky. And he
What
only
a name
winks
for a villain.
He only winks like once or twice in the whole thing.
Maybe. Yeah, he doesn't wink a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Why Winky? I guess that's because his name, but you know.
Yeah. Oh, I was thinking about that actually because like I have been rewatching Psych because it's my comfort series, and I there was one episode where they are going after the same person as a bounty hunter is going after, and the bounty hunter, I guess, like winks. There's a gag where the bounty hunter will be looking over at somebody and will wink at them, and they'll think it's a wink, but then when they ask, "Did you just wink at me?" the guy's like, "No, I have like it's an involuntary tick." And so I feel like they should have done that same gag with Winky where he'll wink at them and they'll think, oh, it's like a conspiracy, but no, it's just this like involuntary tick.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he just
does it.
Yeah.
So now I can finally move on to the two characters that I have for The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Because like as great as Sleepy Hollow is, it doesn't really have a lot of characters in it, does it?
No, not really.
No. Just the two most important ones. Ichabod Crane, a dude who is built in such a way that he'd be found equally attractive by Timothy Chalamet fans, old school Onceler fanatics, and British grandparents.
You know what? Just
am I going to be desicked by his Twitter stands?
See, I'm not innocent in all of this either because I openly said the words "I ship it" about an animated water rat and mole.
Right.
So, let he who is without sin
cast the first comparison to popular handsome boy.
Yep. But they couldn't fit all of that in the Bible, so they just said the first stone. Just left it at that.
Yeah. This dude is our protagonist, even though he shows favor to whoever he can leech off of, and is only interested in the local Freddy's girl, Katrina Van Tassel, for her money. But Nate, you may ask, if someone this odd-looking and easily described as a nasty boy is our hero, who, pray tell, is our villain? Brombones, perhaps?
Brombones.
First and foremost, this dude is built like a Casey, ladies and gentlemen.
He's built like a slender Casey. He's built like a he's the missing link between Casey and Gaston.
Yeah, he's the tactical refined Casey.
Yeah.
He's a jerk and everybody loves him, literally. I don't know why every description of this movie makes him out to be the villain, but literally, right in the movie, they say he's a good-natured guy that everybody loves. Quite the hero of all the country round. Mm-hmm. At worst, he's a good-natured prankster who's only guilty of being so good that he has no competition and telling a spook story to his rival in love, who doesn't even love her.
Mm-hmm. True.
So, this is our villain, ladies and gentlemen.
The one who actually is in it for, like, pure intentions.
He's the anti-Gaston.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like how Ichabod Crane's like the anti-Belle,
Yeah.
and Tom Bones is the anti-Gaston.
Oh my god. American version and French version of the same characters.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Wait, does that mean we have to ship that? Don't think about it too much.
Oh.
Don't think about it too much. Don't think about it too much.
Uh-oh.
So that's everything I have for characters.
Uh-oh. All right.
So that's everything I've got for, characters and stuff. But I think it's time. I throw it. I got the ball. I'm throwing it back in your court.
All right.
And I'm very excited to hear about the legendary epic history of the source material.
Yeah. So first we'll do Icky Toad. Now this, as we said before, is 2 stories. The first is based on The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame, and the second is The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. So The Wind in the Willows, it is a children's book by Scottish writer Kenneth Grahame with 4 stories centered around toad, mole, rat, and badger. And let me just tell you, Grahame is honestly a whole entire mood. He was the secretary for the Bank of England, but then in 1908 he suddenly said, hey, you know what? Screw this. Retired and promptly f***ed off to Berkshire to boat around and chill in the country and write children's stories. Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be a lifestyle inspiration.
Yeah. No, he's in a whole entire mood, and he basically, like, the wiki article about him said he basically lived the life of the characters that he wrote about. He just kind of, like, fussed around in boats and, chilled out by the country.
Amazing.
Yes.
Jealous.
And from what I can tell, the original story he wrote doesn't differ any significant amount from the Disney adaptation. Now, Sleepy Hollow was one of the many odds and ends in Washington Irving's collection of works he called the Sketchbook. Published around 1820. He published it serially, so there were a few stories that he kind of published it in different magazines and stuff. But he published it under the pseudonym Geoffrey Crayon. And this is the first time he's ever used this pseudonym, but it's one that he uses in a lot of his other works. Now, Irving had...
The birth of the crayon.
Yep, the birth of the crayon. Now, Irving had a passion for the folk tale and for writing the cultural landscape of the countries he frequented. And it was because of that the sketchbook became a popular influence on how American writers were perceived. Namely, that the perception of American writers, grew, and people respected American writers a lot more. Sleepy Hollow is seen as one of the earliest pieces of American fiction that's still popular today, as well as its companion story, Rip Van Winkle, also authored by Irving.
Did they both take place in Sleepy Hollow?
No, but I think Irving, they're often lumped together. I don't think he meant for them to really be the same, universe, but they're seen as companion pieces because they have that similar kind of old town legend tone.
You telling me that Washington Irving wasn't planning on building the Irving Cinematic Universe?
The ICU?
Oh, that's gonna put me in the ICU.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. All right, so Sleepy Hollow is set in 1790 in the New York countryside. The Headless Horseman is said to be inspired by one of the folk tales collected by Johann Musaus, a German guy who was famous for collecting folklore and retelling them as satire. Which, by the way, was totally up Washington Irving's alley. Dude loved him some satire. But yeah, Musaus basically did what the Grimm brothers did, but he did it 30 years or so before they did.
Oh.
Yeah. And now Irving based Ichabod Crane on his friend Jesse Merwin, a schoolteacher from Kinderhook, New York. The name Ichabod Crane was stolen directly from an army captain Irving happened to meet, which honestly is a very relatable writer thing to do.
I know.
I often steal people's names.
That's what's great about working in a library,
Yeah.
You're going through the list of cards. It's still on cards, by the way. It's still on a card catalog when you sign up. But yeah, you go through the list and you're like, oh, these are some great names.
Yeah.
Name I can't say out loud. Name I can't say out loud. Oh, I really love name I can't say out loud.
Yeah. I do that with dead people. I like going to cemeteries and looking at interesting people's names.
Yeah, cemeteries have some great names. Like, people have had some really good names, and they just, like, were, like, an accountant or something.
Yeah. And for the most part, they don't mind that you use them.
Yeah. Case in point, Wolf Blitzer is a real person's name who does, like, one of the most boring shows on TV.
That sounds like a dude who has, like, a ghost hunting business.
It doesn't it?
Or, like, does, like, custom mods on dirt bikes.
Right? Yeah, and
Blitzer.
it's a name that is unfortunately wasted on a guy who literally, he does a show called The Situation Room, which sounds great. And it's like, political commentary done in this voice.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Wolf Blitzer. Welcome to The Situation Room.
That's the only way that he can be taken seriously as a person. That's the only occupation, besides maybe, like, you know, like accountant or something, that they could hear the name.
It's a good name for an attorney at law.
Wolf Blitzer, attorney at law. Yeah. Sounds like a character in, like, Ace Attorney or something.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, man.
Now, in Irving's story, the aftermath of Ichabod's night in the woods is told to us through the townspeople gossiping about it afterwards. All we hear is that Ichabod's saddle is found, as well as a smashed pumpkin. So one popular interpretation of the ending is that there never was a headless horseman, and that it was Brom this whole time. Following that idea, he either spooked Ichabod so much that he left town, or he simply killed him and got rid of the body.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it's left kind of open-ended at the end, but, like, the horseman's built in the short, at the least. The horseman's built like a Casey. He's on a black horse, and the only other character we see with a black horse is Brom Bones.
And the only other character we see who is, like, a very agile horseman is Brom Bones. Ha-ha. So a lot of people, interpret it as Brom was the headless horseman.
Yeah, and because it's Disney, he probably just scared him out of town. Probably.
Well, the original wasn't Disney. It was friggin' Washington Irving, and Irving had no trouble killing off his characters.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean in the short, you know, like, he probably scared him out of town, but, like, in Washington Irving's story, it's entirely possible that he's growing the Van Tassel wheat.
Yes, indeed. He just maybe he's underneath the pumpkin patch. And it's actually funny because in the sketchbook, is told through the persona. It's not even just like a pen name, it's also a persona that he puts on, because he speaks, like, as Joffrey Crayon in his travels. And so the Legend of Sleepy Hollow and Rip Van Winkle, the reason why people, like, lump those two together usually is because they are told by another of his personas, this fictional German historian. He makes up this, like, fake German historian to tell these stories that are apparently part of, like, public record or, like, public legend.
You know, the more I hear about this guy, the more I'm convinced that Stephen King took direct inspiration from Washington Irving for a lot of his short stories.
Very probably.
Oh, yeah.
Very probably. But then again, I mean, Irving's so influential as a writer that a lot of people could be influenced by that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And a lot of Sleepy Hollow is rooted in half-truths and regional history, really writing the local identity into the narrative. A lot of Irving's writing in general is that way, actually, especially in the sketchbook. And that's why he was and is so well loved as a figure of American literature.
I do like that.
He's very much like he was very much like a Mark Twain type, but just a different locale.
And was he as handsome as Mark Twain?
He was even handsomer. He was more of a soft man, though.
Yeah.
Soft boy.
You showed me his picture once, and I'm like, yeah, he's in a boy band.
Yeah. And then whenever he got older, he got a little bit less handsome, but more kind of charming and quaint.
Ooh, I do like charming.
Now melody time.
Yes.
So I only did Picosbill and The Legend of Johnny Appleseed. I only did research on those two because I was at my wit's end.
Like, what's the source material for like the winter sleigh ride?
There ain't none.
Exactly. What could possibly be dug up for the Bumble Boogie?
Yeah.
Maybe, like a little expose on the trees poet.
I actually
but,
had copied and pasted the actual poem, and I was gonna read it on this episode, but then I was like, no one cares.
Is it public domain?
It's public domain, but I'm like, I don't even want to, because it's just like, what's the use of it? Nothing is the use of it. I just want to get through this.
I'd like to hear it sometime.
Okay, well, it's super duper duper short, and there's not really much to it. And I'm actually not even really sure why they chose to do that. I mean, like, I'm glad for the author, but yeah.
I can tell you right now why they chose to do that.
Why?
And it's not even like a we'll get to that thing. Like, it's so cheap. Like, it's a poem about trees, so all they have to do is like have their background artists do some really nice backgrounds that they can sweep over and then put a little bit of animation to. It was so very this is so economical in its money saving to do trees as a short.
Okay, let's do melody time.
Let's do melody time.
Okay, so let's start with The Legend of Johnny Appleseed. So this is based on John Chapman, an 18th century American pioneer who was famous for his conservation efforts, kindness, and, of course, planting a metric butt-ton of apple trees all around the eastern United States.
Butt-ton.
This is an anecdote that I pulled from Wikipedia because I just thought this was very funny and adorable, and I think that you are going to think it's adorable too. So, according to Harper's New Monthly magazine, which I think was a magazine that ran at the time, toward the end of his career, John was present when a missionary was preaching to an open-air congregation in Mansfield, Ohio. The sermon was long and severe on the topic of extravagance because the pioneers were buying things like calico and imported tea. So this preacher kept repeating the question, "Where now is there a man who, like the primitive Christians, is traveling to heaven barefooted and clad in coarse raiment?" And he went on asking and kept repeating this until finally Johnny Appleseed, his patience worn thin, he finally walked up to the preacher, put his bare foot up on the stump that had served as a podium, and announced, "Here's your primitive Christian." And at that, the flustered missionary dismissed the congregation. I thought that was adorable. So
I'm here.
Yeah.
You asked for me, and I'm telling you to shut up.
Yeah, he has no time for all this fire and brimstone.
Good.
Now, John was apparently also pretty tight with the Native American tribes and nations he encountered, and he held a lot of admiration for them. And they admired him too, apparently regarding him as someone with spiritual power, and he passed through their lands without fuss. Honestly, all in all, he seems like the Bob Ross of the American frontier, complete with animal friends and happy trees.
I'm really glad to hear that, because, like, one of the things I noticed was, like, you remember the cheeky little bit of massive racism that they did in
Pecos Bill?
Pecos Bill, yeah. One of the things that I noticed was how, like, when they depicted the Native Americans in Johnny Appleseed, they depicted them as just people alongside of people. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of impressed. That was, like, impressive for Disney.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to go out of my way and say, like, oh, this is a fantastic depiction, but, like, we're talking about Disney here. For Disney, They did a pretty good job.
And I think it's more interesting to see how two different depictions within the same package film can be so wholly different. you know?
Like, because like, you have like different teams working on different things, so you get different interpretations, sometimes even of the same thing, and it's very jarring to think. But it's also like important to realize, like, some people weren't as bad as others, maybe. I don't
Or
know.
it could also, from a cynical standpoint, it could be that, they included those depictions to serve two different purposes. It's
That's
like, oh, we're
true.
all
Yeah.
friends and we're all happy because that's the tone that they're trying to set. And then later on, it's like, Pecos Bill is the greatest and most powerful and da 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 da. And so then,
Look at these painted savages. But look at how we're all good friends and we're all able to sit at the same table.
yeah, that's not quite the case. So anyway,
Pretty bad.
now so one last thing with Johnny Appleseed, which is the best part. Since he planted wild apples and he was against discrimination over apple varieties, the fruit his trees produced were generally unfit for eating. Their primary use, then, was actually the production of cider. So, really, the reason why he was so warmly welcomed into these communities was because the gift that he was bringing wasn't the gift of apples, but actually the gift of booze.
Oh my god!
He was granting them the gift of alcohol. And as author... As author Michael Pollan says, Johnny Appleseed was America's Dionysus.
I love this so much more now.
Right?
Oh, what?
Isn't that funny?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
This is a perfect man.
It's incredible. A perfect man. Yes.
John Chapman. The perfect man.
We peaked with Johnny Appleseed.
It's all downhill from there.
Speaking of all downhill from there, let's go into Pecos Bill. Now, I will say, credit where credit is due. I will thank him because in researching him, I discovered my new favorite term. Fake lore.
Fake lore.
Fake lore is the term used to describe manufactured, inauthentic folklore that's presented like it's genuine.
Oh.
Pecos Bill and Paul Bunyan are the two most popular examples of fake lore. The latter because the bulk of Paul Bunyan's stories are not even close to the tone or context of the original figure. Another example is, in my estimation, our favorite Old Papagayo. It
just doesn't exist.
It's probably an indirect example of fake lore, made to seem like an authentic and primitive article when, in fact, it's just manufactured authenticity. Yes. So, now that brings us to Pecos Bill. Bill was created in the early 1900s as a bunch of short stories by Tex O'Reilly, who was, and I shit you not to use your term, he was an American mercenary said to have fought in at least 10 different wars during his lifetime, including fighting alongside Pancho Villa in Mexico. He joined with the Spanish Foreign Legion for the Rif War in North Africa and serving as an international policeman in Shanghai before coming back to the States and becoming a writer for the Associated Press. Now, my question is, why would he even make Pecos Bill in the first place? I mean, it seems to me like he's already a tall tale himself with just his life.
Yeah, why wouldn't he just write about himself?
Yeah, Tex O'Reilly is, as a real person, more of a legendary figure than Pecos Bill. So, Pecos Bill is fake lore, which means despite Tex O'Reilly claiming him to be a figure in stories told around cowboy campfires on the frontier, he actually didn't exist as a legendary hero until 1917. There was, however, a Civil War officer named William Shafter who was nicknamed Pecos Bill, but besides the name and general, brave exploits, it doesn't seem like he served as much inspiration for the stories. So yeah.
He's like an Ichabod Crane. I'm just gonna take this name and do something with it.
Sure.
Tenuous,
but yeah. So that's why I was saying like, oh, I'll talk about that later because Pecos Bill,
is good.
Not just a an insulting folklore figure. He's an insulting fake lore figure because he didn't even exist. But that doesn't stop people from thinking that he's real. Oh, and apparently there was a chick who wrote a book about what happens after Slewfoot Sue like bounces up and, out of the world. She
goes to the moon.
She writes that Slewfoot Sue lands somewhere in Russia, and then I think she meets the Baba Yaga.
Oh.
And it's like a story about that. I don't know if she actually fights the Baba Yaga or if it's just like she goes there and makes a new life for herself, but
Slewfoot Sue and the Baba Yaga sit down, have some tea, talk about boys, talk about how you don't need them, and then Slewfoot Sue becomes a new Baba Yaga.
It reminds me, like, Slewfoot Sue and the Baba Yaga is like the female version of Bigfoot versus D.B. Cooper.
Oh, no!
These two.
Don't you deep cut that?
Yeah, and that's a reference that no one will understand.
I don't know. I'm sure we got some RLM fans in here.
We'll see. That's it for source material for me. What do you have for background info?
Production. So when it comes to production, the most interesting stuff lies actually in the adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. The original name of the film was Two Fabulous Characters, which I'm convinced is a better name.
Yeah.
And each segment was supposed to be their own feature-length film. The concepts were fully formed, rights purchased, segments storyboarded, the works. But like with Bongo and The Legend of Happy Valley, aka Mickey and the Beanstalk, they failed to find their footing in development, typically because Walt didn't like the direction and wanted to rework it, and so they were each indefinitely shelved until they were dusted off out of cost-cutting necessity. Also, the reason McBadger's Scottish accent is so awful is because the actor they got to do it was not an actor, not even at all, not even close.
Oh.
It was an animator from the studio, just some guy they had kicking around who worked uncredited on shorts and credited on a few films, a standard cost-cutting measure of theirs, to just grab somebody from some department and say, hey, can you do this voice?
And even in the best of situations, many voice actors cannot do a Scottish accent.
Yeah, it's not an easy accent to do because, like, it sounds like it should be easy to do, and it's very easy to do, like, an impression of a Scottish accent, but it's not easy to do a Scottish accent.
Yeah, I think it's kind of this viral joke at this point that it's viral humor that people can't do Scottish accents. But that doesn't stop them from trying.
True Scots is tough, but fake Scots is everywhere.
No true Scotsman would do a bad. There's a fallacy called.
I got the no true Scotsman. Aren't you literary?
It's lit.
Okay.
Here.
So the most interesting thing I can tell you about Melody Time is that it was originally intended to be a package feature specifically about American legends, Johnny Appleseed and Pecos Bill being the only survivors of that initial incarnation. Also, there was, in fact, some censorship done to Pecos Bill for a short period of time, but all things cut were eventually reinstated. I'm talking, of course, about his smoking. In some of his first home releases, the cigarettes were totally eliminated, including the entire sequence where he ropes a cyclone and rolls a smoke. That's what they got rid of. Not the gunplay, which still censors the Martins and Coys to this day, and not the goofy, wacky, zany, painted desert racism bit. Nah, we're going to go after the smoking. I mean, I think it was released in the 90s that way, so.
Coyote nipples.
Not the Coyote breast milk scene, no. Yeah, thank you for reminding me that they totally uncensored being nursed by a coyote.
I love it's hard to quantify how much humor I feel upon hearing the coyote breast milk scene. I don't know why, but the words the coyote breast milk scene just make me laugh so hard.
It's a beautiful word salad where you don't nothing seems like it should go together. Like, you know when you make macaroni salad?
Yeah.
And it's like, nothing seems like it should go together. Okay, we've got macaroni, we've got carrots and onions, and we've got mayonnaise and some spices. None of this, you look at all the ingredients separate. And it's like, there's no way this works together. You put it all together, you got something there.
You got Coyote breast milk.
Coyote breast milk.
Oh, man.
I'm so upset at you. This is stupid. And now I'm stupid for going along with it.
Catalina wine mixer and the Coyote breast milk scene.
Mm-hmm.
Highly quotable. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So, anyways, the studio at this time, the reason why there's not much to go on is because the studio is still in heavy debt, due to its emphasis in helping with the wartime effort. Not to mention, it's a hierarchical and structural nightmare as Walt continues to harbor grudges against former strikers. His own position in the studio was kind of like a cat at the front door. Not sure if it wants to go in or get out, flip-flopping, causing a mini panic amongst the creative and executive departments. Also, at this time, Walt is edging closer and closer to being okay-go with his latest and greatest project yet, a new revolution in entertainment. So instead of focusing on the same information I gave you the last episode, I'm going to focus on some of the famous names associated with this feature film. I tried not to give you everybody's life story, tried to just hit the highlights. We're starting off with Mr. Basil Rathbone, and Abby, you and I saw him when we watched The Court Jester together.
Yay!
He was the evil Lord Ravenhurst.
I do love me some Rathbone.
We do love us some Rathbone. And that's not a euphemism. He was born June 13th, 1892, in South Africa, moved up to jolly old England, where he spent his school days with friends that called him Ratters, but like in a cool way. And by all accounts, he was an absolute theater jock, being a world-class fencer. He was a fencing bastard, a fencer, if you will.
He is both, in vast quantities.
Yeah. Got married, had a son, got separated, struggled to pay his own expenses and still cover his ex-wife and son, because he's just that kind of dude.
Mm-hmm.
Served in World War I, so did his brother, who died in World War I, and after that he kind of had this whole reckless abandon for his safety thing going on, and volunteered to do insanely dangerous scouting missions during the day, which earned him countless medals for bravery, because he was just too good at it to die. Got back home, went back to doing what he did best, theater, including a starring role in a play called The Captive, which is notable because it was one of the first depictions of homosexuality in modern theater.
Yeah, we love it.
We do. It was also done in England in the 1920s, so the whole cast got arrested and charged with depicting homosexuality in modern theater.
Wow.
Yeah, he was very unhappy about it, because he thought the story was very important, and, people deserved to see it. So, late 30s, World War II going on, he wanted to go to war again and do the world a solid by reducing the Nazi population. Instead, when they told him he was too old and too injured, he went on to be one of the most prolific actors in British and American film. Famously taught Errol Flynn how to sword fight. And he would throw the prototypes for big Hollywood parties you hear about. And, he would just have these big rockin' ragers on the mountain. And one of the times, Errol Flynn...
Rockin' Rager on the mountain.
Absolutely. One of the times Errol Flynn got super drunk at a party, was taken home by a girl, passed out on her couch, so she drove him back to Basil Rathbone's house and just dumped him on the lawn. He woke up in the morning and just went in and had breakfast.
Oh, I love it.
It was the 30s, man.
It was the 30s, man.
He was also one of the first and most famous people to ever play Sherlock Holmes. Later in his life, he would unfortunately be reduced to taking just about any role for the money before his death. And if we decided to watch another of his movies from 1940, Rhythm on the River in specific, we would see not only Basil Rathbone, but also Bing Crosby working together in starring roles 9 years before this film that we watched. Yeah. So, speaking about Bing Crosby, let's move on to him, because, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Born May 3rd, 1903, middle child of 7, started out his career in a duo with Al Rinker in the vaudeville circuit days, mid-20s or so, but it wouldn't take him very long to move on to a solo career with a radio program and mounting popularity. 30s saw him sign a contract with Paramount to do some iconic comedies and fatherly roles. Did a lot of movies with Bob Hope, a franchise called The Road Pictures. The Road to Zanzibar, The Road to India, The Road to Euphoria, whatever, I don't remember the names. It was the most lucrative film franchise in the world until the James Bond movies came along, which were eventually surpassed by the bland Marvel movies. Had a wife, 4 kids, she died, had a wife, had 3 more kids, stuck with them to the end, died October 14th, 1977, while playing golf. His last words were literally, "Let's get a Coke," and then he had a massive heart attack on the way to the clubhouse.
Oh, that's not supposed to be funny, but wow.
I know, right?
Famous last words, literally.
Famous last words, "Let's get a Coke." That's a great...
They need to... Coke needs to put that on their advertising.
They need to... hopefully somebody recorded that, and they can just, put that at the end of their ads. "Let's get a Coke." Oh!
Yeah.
Not necessarily described as father of the year, though.
Yeah.
Probably because in the 80s, one of his kids from his first marriage, Gary, wrote a tell-all memoir accusing him of particularly sadistic and violent abuse.
Oh, darn you, Bing Crosby.
Now, here's where things get interesting with that, or weird with that. Decades later, sometime in the 2010s, his daughter from his second marriage, Mary Frances, who had a career in the television drama Dallas... She was the one that shot JR. I don't know if you ever watched Dallas.
No, nothing about it. What did she say, though? Let's go on.
She accused her brother of exaggerating the abuse to sell more copies of his book. And he more or less admitted to doing just that.
I didn't even realize he was still alive. I'm still back in the 50s, man.
Right? Here's the thing. One of Gary's brothers, Lindsay, allegedly still supports the claims. And his other brother, Philip, stands by Mary.
Dang.
So we can all agree on one thing when it comes to the life and legacy of Bing Crosby. Nobody wants their last words to be product placement.
Yeah. There you go.
So, moving on. We had them in the last episode. We got them in this episode. We know them. You love them. Let's get a little info on the Andrews sisters.
Yeah, I love some info.
You've got your eldest sister, Laverne, your middleest sister, Maxine, and your sweet baby sister, Patty, who adhered themselves to music their whole lives and started out as part of a 55-piece band, breaking off in 32 to go their own way. From there, it took them 6 years to smash the Billboard #1 spot with Bemir Miss Duchesne.
Yeah, I love that song.
It was popular with Nazis for a little while. Because it was German, but it ceased being popular with Nazis pretty much immediately when they discovered not only that the songwriters were Jewish, but that it was popular with inmates of their camps, because it was based on one of the most famous Yiddish love songs of all time.
Yes.
So, they stopped being wise on it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe this ain't the one.
And in the 40s, the Andrews sisters were everywhere. Movies, radio, cartoons, commercials. Hell, most days you could look out your backyard and see the trio just standing there menacingly. And
they would just point at you in perfect synchronization. Every time I think about the Andrews sisters, or the blank sisters, I always think of the Lawrence Welk show, but the SNL skit, not the actual Lawrence Welk show. Have you seen...
I was going to say, you watched the Lawrence Welk show?
Well, I think I've seen clips before, but the SNL skit of the Lawrence Welk show is probably... It's one of the only skits that has, moved me to tears. I'm laughing so hard. Because...
I need to see that.
This... It'll always be a grouping of these, sisters, and they're singing, and then there's always one that pops up, played by Kristen Wiig. And she does her Kristen Wiig thing, and it's pretty good. But anytime I think of the Andrews sisters or anything, along those lines, I think of that skit. But
right. It's a good skit. I need to see it.
It's a good skit, he says, not having actually seen the skit. But I
like that skit.
I can assure
Never
you
seen that
it is
skit.
a good skit.
So, outside of that skit, though, the trio kind of got hit hard in the 50s with challenges. Patty decided she wanted to try her own thing, failed. The trio reunited and tried to get into rock and roll, and they failed. They managed to play the hits pretty consistently. Laverne passed in 68. Patty and Maxine maintained a steady musical career until the 90s.
Wow.
Maxine became the vice president of a college in Tahoe, Nevada. Passed in 95 while on vacation in Cape Cod, and Patty passed in 2013, leaving behind a legacy as one of the best-selling female vocal groups of all time to this day.
Hell yeah.
I briefly considered doing a little bit on Ken Darby, the man who arranged music for most of the movies we've seen so far, just because he was insulted that his arrangement of Johnny Appleseed was called New Deal music by Walt. God only knows what that means. But I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't take this last prime opportunity to tell you about someone pretty important to Disney. The man that built the Disney company with his own 2 hands and a drawing of a funny little mouse. I'm, of course, talking about Ub Iwerks.
I freaking knew you. I knew that was gonna be a fake out.
You thought I was gonna talk about Disney, but no. If I'm talking about the first person to draw a funny little mouse, it's Ub Iwerks.
No, I knew that the expectation was that you would be talking about Disney.
Yep.
I could smell it coming a mile away. I got your number, man.
You got my name.
Yeah.
You got my number. Why don't you call me?
You can't fake a faker. Just
true.
gonna say that.
I probably can't.
Can't con a confidence woman.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And you are my favorite confident woman.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So tell me about
Ub.
Ub.
Born in 1901, Kansas City, Missouri, to a German immigrant named Ert Ub Iwerks, who named him Ub Ert Iwerks. Imagination didn't run in the family.
Apparently not.
Yeah, his father was a serial family abandoner, and so his father abandoned him when he was a teenager, forcing him to drop out of school and work. While working, he met up with some kid named Walt, and they became friends, best friends. The two of them started an art studio called Iwerks Disney. Walt joked that if they named it Disney Iwerks, people would think they made glasses. After that dissolved, they formed Laugh-O-Gram, where Ub was the lead animator and Walt was the lead writer. And Ub developed a special series of techniques that allowed him to layer animation onto live-action footage, and vice versa, which they utilized to create the Alice comedies. While that company was busy going under, Walt took a trip out west and secured a deal with Universal, inviting his friend, his best friend, to come with him, which he did. There, Walt bounced some ideas off of Ub, and they came up with one of the most iconic and beloved characters of all time. That's right, the legendary Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. What, you've never heard of Oswald the Lucky Rabbit? Probably because he was stolen from the duo by Universal.
What?
Walt being fired, and many of the animators that they'd worked with being poached.
Universal.
Ub was...
For shame.
Ub was also offered a... Huh?
For shame.
For shame on them, you know? Just like they took the character created very carefully by Ub Iwerks and Walt Disney, and they stole it, and they stole all his animators away.
And Disney, you know what? Disney would never do something like that.
Right. Ub was also offered a contract because he was kind of a ridiculous animator. I'll get to that in a second. But Walt said, no. We'll start from scratch, you and me against the world. And his friend, his best friend, agreed and went with him, where they started Disney Studios for the first time again. So they began bouncing ideas, got to come up with something good. But what could be better than Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, the legendary character that will last for all time? A horse? No, but he keeps that in his back pocket and makes Horace horse collar.
I know, I was
cow?
going to say... Can't do a horse because we can't draw horses.
No, they couldn't draw horses.
They didn't get anybody who could draw a horse until 1949.
It took them all the way up until the 40s to get a horse drawer.
Yeah.
So, Horace horse collar stuck in the back pocket. A cow? No, but he keeps that in his back pocket and it makes Clarabelle cow.
Yay.
A cat? There's too many cats, but he keeps that in his back pocket and makes Peg Leg Pete.
Mm-hmm.
It's dusty as to who has the first idea of this, whether it's Ub himself or Disney himself, or if it's based on some sketches done by a completely different animator named Hugh Harmon, but eventually they settle on a mouse. Mickey the Mouse. So, now they gotta do a cartoon, but it's just them. That, Abby, is when Ub the Machine Iworks shifts into maximum overdrive.
Okay.
In 3 weeks, averaging 700 drawings a day, Ub the Machine Iworks creates Plain Crazy, the first Disney Mickey Mouse short. If you want some perspective, most artists of the time would average about 100 frames in a week.
Whoa.
And he invented the technology to put live action and animation together, and he invented the multi-pane animation that was used in many future shorts, and he invented the technology that would sync sound to animation, first utilized in Steamboat Willie, which was the Mickey Mouse short that blew everyone away because, oh my god, that mouse is really whistling. And he was the one who invented everything that put their company on the map and introduced Disney Animation Studios to the world.
And people say, well, Ub, what's your secret? What do you do? He goes, I works. That's a secret.
You son of a bitch, I hate you.
All right.
I'm so mad.
Good.
I hate that you're my best friend.
Yep.
Oh my god.
It's okay. It's okay. You can take a minute if you need it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I love you.
No, it's I sometimes find it hard to deal with myself.
Relatable.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is also a pair of, shall we say, formative experiences for Disney. First, the experience of being betrayed and losing Oswald. Because of that, Disney vows that he will never not own his properties, or at the very least only utilize the public domain to its fullest potential. Second, the experience of being friends, best friends, with Ub the Machine Iworks. Yeah, that's kind of an earned name. This combined with his very specific upbringing and mindset meant that he now expected the same kind of above and beyond that he himself and his own best friend would pour into their work, including expecting Ub to be as dedicated then as he would be now. So needless to say, Ub worked harder than anybody else during those early years. It was around 1930 that he decided he was done, with Walt's overbearing and overworking, done taking orders, and done feeling undervalued. So he split. He opened the Iworks studio, bringing to it all of his legendary technical skill. Straight up, it would take like 10, maybe 20 artists to replace his talent. The problem with that was that Walt now employed hundreds of artists, many of whom were innovators who took the technology Iworks developed and ran with it. Fred Moore, Ward Kimball, Milt Kahl, Art Bennett, just off the top of my head. Meanwhile, over at the Iworks studio, he was slowly finding out the hard way that it was true. Imagination didn't really run in his family. The animations were beautiful, but his characters weren't memorable. They weren't special. Things just kind of happened in his pictures, and his company unfortunately folded. And Ub was left bouncing from company to company. He did the tee-hee thing of working in every company at the time. So it takes nearly a decade from there for Walt and Ub to get back together, meeting for lunch, probably at the Brown Derby.
Yes.
Walt says, Ub, I've been a dick. And Ub says, stop being a dick. And Walt says, probably not. And Ub says, then I can't come back and work for you in animation again. And then Walt says, I beg you. And Ub says, look, I miss you. And I miss steady work. And I miss you. You're my friend. And I love you. And then they have a little kiss.
Let's go steady.
And then Ub says, huh?
Let's go steady.
They go steady, And then Ub says, okay, how about this? What if I come back and work for you in effects? And Walt says, what does that mean? And Ub says, remember how I invented, techniques and stuff? I'm going to do that for you. And we, together, we're going to kill again. And Walt says,
we're going to murder
in.
someone.
We're going to do some deaths and murders. And Walt says, I'm in. And they have a little kiss. And Ub invents the technology. He reinvents the technology, I should say, that combines live action and animation. And thanks to this, we get Saludos Amigos. We get the Three Caballeros. We get the movie that the characters from Splash Mountain came from. We get Bedknobs and Broomsticks. We get Mary Poppins. He wins Oscars, particularly for his work loaned out to Alfred Hitchcock working on The Birds, putting birds into that movie. There's even an award named after him at the Annie Awards. Every time something new happens in animation, Iwerks is there all the way up to his death in 71, seamlessly incorporating it into the Disney brand. In fact, he's one of the guys that Walt has on his list for that project that will revolutionize entertainment.
Hell yeah.
And that's everything I have for production.
Woo!
Most of that was like biographies and Iwerks being a literal machine of a person.
Freaking machine.
But yeah, it sucks, because like he was literally like a legendary, irreplaceable animator, and he inspired so many legendary, irreplaceable animators.
Yeah.
That he kind of accidentally put himself out of business at the end there. Yeah. But they made up and got back together. They're going steady now.
And they killed somebody.
They killed a man.
Just like the old days.
The good old days.
Okay, well, thank you. And I mean, I'd rather hear biographies and stuff than hear a bunch of things that we've already talked about, or hear a bunch of like unnecessary things just to fill time. So I'd rather have that and be interested, because I am interested in Basil Rathbone and Iwerks, and
I'm glad. I was that was the one thing I was worried about when I was looking at my notes. I was like, is this a lot of stuff that's uninteresting? Mm-hmm. And I'm glad that you were interested. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you. Because I'm also interested in learning about like the history that you pull up of like folklore, and like when you tell me like, about how Washington Irving named characters, and you tell me about like how Pecos Bill is just a trash bag of ideas written by a much more interesting person.
Written by an actual American folk hero.
Yeah, he could have been an American folk hero if he had better self-esteem.
Yeah.
Oh no, everybody wants to hear about Pecos Bill. They don't want to hear about my legendary exploits in 10 wars. I mean,
he did write an autobiography, but like I feel like he should have just stopped there.
I have to stop myself though, because like maybe he did some stuff that's screwed up, but I don't know.
I mean, he was a mercenary,
and
he did a lot of stuff for different countries and a lot of Latin American countries. So there's probably a lot of horrible things that he did. So in essence, he kind of is the real Pecos Bill.
You're absolutely right on that. Oh my God.
His nickname was literally Tex. That's not his real name. That's his.
Yeah, you don't get the nickname Tex for being a good and normal, well-adjusted person. Side-eyeing Tex Avery.
And kind to foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get it by being a soldier
Side-eyeing Tex Avery.
Yeah. Soldier for hire. So Onions, I don't really have that much to say about these pieces. I really loved Icky Toad, just because I like those two individual stories. I think besides the horrible, regrettable Scottish accent, I think that these are two really tight pieces, that they are, they're great accompaniments of their original stories, and I think that I don't know, I just really loved it. It made up for the fact that I had to watch Melody Time.
Yeah.
So that's all I can really say about it. I will say it sucks because I love the character of Joe Carioca, but by now it like hardly registered that he was there. I was just like, oh yeah, there he is.
Yeah. Apparently they just couldn't get the voice actor back.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. But then it's like, just don't even have it there. I mean, like, I like the lady organist, but she doesn't. Yeah, I don't know.
She was lovely, and I love to watch her play the organ. Yeah. But like, it was supposed to be like equal parts organ playing and animation interaction, and which is difficult if you don't have the voice actors. I mean, I'm sure they had Clarence Nash kicking around, but if you don't have the, was it Clarence Nash, the voice of Disney?
I don't know.
I might be talking out of my ass here, but I know Clarence Nash was a voice of Donald Duck.
Yeah, I don't remember. But and it's funny. Yeah, I think it's important to have Joe Carioca's actual voice actor, because as hard as it apparently was to get a Scottish voice actor, I think it would be even more difficult to get a Brazilian voice actor.
Yeah.
I don't think you could.
And you can't just, and he has such an iconic voice.
Yeah, you couldn't get another Carioca to get to play Joe Carioca.
Yeah. So unfortunately, that's why the probably one of the best characters they've ever come up with just had to go by the wayside.
Which is very sad.
I will say his body language was very Joe Carioca, and it was very, very cool. I liked him in that. But I would have liked him a lot better if I could have heard him.
Yeah. There's really no, like, even though I do like the story of John Chapman, I don't know if there was a single segment in Melody Time that I actually would willingly watch again. And that's the first time that has happened in the history of this podcast. In watching, I mean, we watched, 11 films at this point. It's the first time that it's happened that, like, even Dumbo, I would, be fine with watching it again, even though, I maybe wouldn't love to watch it again. I wouldn't mind watching it again, but
I mean, I had some segments in Melody Time that I would absolutely love to see again. I think between Melody Time, Make Mine Music, and Fantasia, you can put together a really solid singular package feature that can be pitched to everybody.
Yeah, I just feel like, I don't know. Yeah, like Fantasia, there were some that I liked, and then Fun and Fancy Free, Make My Music, there were things that I liked, but Melody Time, I mean, none of them besides Pecos Bill were like all bad, but it was more just like there wasn't enough of a positive to get me to focus in and actually enjoy it.
Yeah, like altogether the sum of its parts are not cohesive enough to be good.
It is truly like ending the package film era on a flatulent whimper.
Yeah, like this is basically what is described as Walt's rummage sale of ideas.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was Make My Music, or is it both?
That was the whole package film era, basically.
Yeah.
I could say
Make My Music was like the good stuff that you have in the attic, and then Melody Time is like the, Six Flags t-shirts and like the the leftover silverware with the plastic handles that you find in your garage.
Yeah, if they had to do this again, I am certain they would have just gone under.
Yeah. It's just not great. The last little dingleberry hanging on to the package film here.
We would absolutely be like looking at Oppenheimer princesses instead of Disney princesses.
Yeah.
That's a callback because one of my friends said they really liked that
joke.
joke.
Really? The Robert J. Yeah. We aim to please. But and I don't know if you have any crackpot theories. I didn't really think of any crackpot theories, unfortunately.
I've actually got my full OOC.
All right.
My observation, opinion, crackpot theory.
Take it away.
All right, observation. Fun fact, many clips from the Wintertime segment were repurposed and recut into one of the Disney Home Video sing-along VHS tapes. How do I know this? Because I have that VHS tape. It's called Disney's Sing-Along Songs Very Merry Christmas Songs. They set it to Jingle Bells, and there's a Joy to the World segment with the Winter Fairies from Fantasia. I would watch this religiously at Christmas time when I was a wee lad.
Aw, when you're a wee lad.
Yeah. Also, I can say with confidence that I recognized recycled footage from Bambi in Mr. Toad when the dogs are after him in the streets. Mm-hmm. So, let's get right into the opinion. Melody Time, start off with. This is honestly deserving of Make Mine Music's title of Worse Fantasia. It feels like the most incoherently slapped together package feature to date, and I shouldn't be as surprised as I am. Production of this really was in the thick of we gotta do literally anything with nobody because war. I got some genuine joy out of a few segments, Johnny Appleseed, Trees, most of Pecos Bill, and it was fun to see Donald and Joe again, but I wish they'd talked. That's 3.5 out of 7 segments, and that's sad. It was sad.
Would you say, instead of something being like greater than the sum of its parts, would you say that Melody Time's less than the sum of its parts?
Absolutely. I would go out on a limb and say, like, there are huge chunks of it that drag it down.
I think, yeah.
Jarring was Johnny Appleseed showing Native Americans as just like people who were friendly, and then Pecos Bill, who had to do a cheeky little racism on them for no reason other than that's toxic white America's perception of cowboy culture, baby. How come you can cut sunflower, but not the painted desert or the roustabouts? Do better.
And plus, freaking John Chapman was a real person, and that is how he treated Native Americans in real life. Yet Pecos Bill is a fake lore character, not even a folklore character. He's a fake lore character created in basically the 20s, and yet Native Americans are treated worse by a fictional character in a fictional way.
Was where they could get away with. That was where they could get away with the lazy low blow that is a racist joke.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's ironic because normally it would be like a fictional character where you're making everything up, and so it's a nicer kind of sugar-coated version of the truth, like how racism doesn't exist in Princess and the Frog, versus like real life horrible things happening. But it's like with this, it's like the opposite is true.
And need I remind you, like, the worst is yet to come.
The worst is yet to come. Da, 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 da.
Oh. We haven't even seen the most despicable depiction of Native American people in Disney cinema. Like, we're getting
there.
We're so close.
We're getting so close, my friend.
Oh my God, we are at the first star on the right.
You can smell the pipe smoke, the peace pipe smoke.
Mm-hmm. So why don't I give you my opinion on Icky Toad? I think that the best way to describe this movie is whimsical. Even when it's frightening and Sleepy Hollow, it has a strong measure of whimsy. It really felt like they were still trying to find the moderation between frightening and fanciful. It has its technical flaws, like recycled animation, cut corners, Mick Badger's voice, but these are all forgivable on account of how strong the stories are, how fabulous the characters are, and some good old-fashioned complete lack of racism.
Yay!
Unless somebody tells me that, like, the weasels were all Irish or something.
Or like or Winky was like an Italian stereotype.
Yeah, like, another Italian stereotype?
Wow.
In Disney?
Wow.
It's more likely than you'd think. So before I go on to the ranking, I'm going to give you my little crackpot theory.
Give it to me.
Originally, Basil Rathbone was to play the uptight and proper Ichabod Crane, while Bing Crosby was to play the wild and carefree Mr. Toad. This was changed only in pre-production when they decided that the British guy should play the British guy and the American should play the American.
I like that. I rather enjoy that, because they really are, like, the opposite of each other.
They are, like, you get, I mean, when you find out about Basil Rathbone in his personal life throwing wild Hollywood parties, it skews it a little bit, but every character that, like, Basil Rathbone was known for playing, like, the definitive Sherlock Holmes.
And the very kind of, the cold, distant intellectual type, which, I mean, Ichabod, to be fair, Ichabod is also kind of like a pleasure-seeking type, but not in like a festive way. More in like I'm smart and I'm better than everyone and I know that I'm better than everyone. He's
a leisure-seeking type.
Yes.
He wants things to be easy for him.
Yes. It's like the Joe Carioca, I don't remember what the name was. That it was a term for like somebody who is kind of a kind of lazy ladies man who's
malandro.
A malandro, yeah.
I'm learning from you.
Yeah, you're learning from me.
Yay!
But yeah, like a kind of malandro type. But yeah, that's I like that crackpot theory. I accept that crackpot theory. So I don't really have any crackpot theories. I don't know. Weirdness. I guess technically maybe we could have crackpot theory be that Brom Bones killed Ichabod Crane.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good. We'll call that the crackpot theory for the day.
Or haha, what if
Oh.
the Headless Horse... I was actually thinking about this before. What if we make a story where the Headless Horseman was actually the ghost of the last person who was trying for Katrina's hand? Like, he was trying to marry her, but he was killed by, Katrina, or by Brom Bones, or killed by somebody. And so he waits to warn others and scare others away who would fight for her affections, because he doesn't want them to end up like him.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
Yeah. That's like that's why in the song it's "You Can't Reason with a Headless Man," is because he doesn't, listen to you defending why you need to stay and fight for her affections. He just wants you out. He wants to scare you away. And that's why Ichabod was scared away.
Spooked by a spooksperson.
Spooked by a spook. Yeah. So that could be my crackpot theory.
All right. We'll go with that one. We'll go with that one.
Yeah. But yes, so that is all. Do you want to do ranking first, or do you want me to do my ranking?
I can do ranking first, if you don't mind.
Oh, you go right ahead.
All right. So, my top 4 remain the same. Bambi, Fantasia, Make Mine Music, and Three Caballeros.
Mm-hmm.
However, I gotta give number 5 to Icky Toad. It's very close, but it's purely because the horses in Icky Toad are better to look at. My list bottom got a little bit of a shakeup, with Melody Time taking the very last spot in the top 10. I enjoyed it less than Snow White. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's got marginally less racist content than Dumbo. Like,
we're really
they do,
dancing on a razor's edge right now.
Really are. They do the way I see it is this. They do a 1 racism in the Melody Time. They do a 2 racism in Dumbo.
This is some dubious math. You're known for your dubious math.
Listen, okay, that's twice as racism.
Which is half as much as magic.
Okay, so we divide the magic by the amount of quarters we get from whales.
Okay, yeah, from whales and giants, and
whales and giants and puppets give us nickels.
Wonders. We didn't really have any one-tooth wonders. I mean, there was a fish in Mr. Toad that had a one-tooth wonder, and then there was the lady. Oh no! The happily dancing lady in Sleepy Hollow.
I didn't get to mention the happily dancing lady in Sleepy Hollow.
Way better.
I loved her. Can I just take a moment to put a spotlight on who I have referred to as the blacksmith's daughter?
Oh yeah.
Because she is so cute, and I get it. Like, the movie wants us to believe that she's the ugly girl. Mm-hmm. But she's so cute. Yes, she's adorable. She's happy.
She's this little chubby, like, happy girl who doesn't have any voice lines. She just kind of laughs.
She has some singing lines.
Oh yeah, I guess she does in Ichabod Crane. And she has kind of unruly black hair and long eyelashes, and she is seen as the undesirable woman that is keeping, Brom Bones from dancing with Katrina, because she won't let him go. And so eventually he freaking manhandles her and locks her in he locks her outside, which is supposed to be funny, but she just goes right on, breaks through the front door again, still happy, and goes right on dancing.
She's such a delight. I love her positive attitude. I love her so much.
Excellent. I want to make a story about her.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that.
Oh, blessed be. I'll read it.
I'm gonna do that. Blessed be.
All right. Where did we leave off? I lost the plot.
I think you that ends the ranking, I think, because you said that it's Melody Time and then Dumbo.
Yes.
So, mine is... Are you finished?
Okay. I'm finished.
So, mine is not the same as yours. So, taking my number 1 spot is Icky Toad. Because I like both stories, and I like that they are both based on, short stories, and I just loved it. It was so, like happy and pleasant and cool. And
I'm glad you enjoyed it that
yeah,
much. Yeah.
I did enjoy it, and
it's definitely like closer to your
yes,
wheelhouse.
and it was just delightful, and none of the stories overstayed their welcome. They didn't drag. There was no unnecessary humor about feral characters, unless the situation called for it. I just loved it. I don't know. It was awesome. And then a very close second is Bambi. Very, very close second. Then number 3, Fun and Fancy Free. Number 4, Pinocchio. And number 5, Make Mine Music. Then down at the very bottom, taking the very, very last spot, is Melody Time. Because even though it does have half the... I don't want to quantify racism. But even though it has maybe less racist screen time, I still felt like Dumbo was more bizarre and entertaining, especially with the pink elephants on parade. And I don't know, I thought it was more, for whatever reason or another, it was more entertaining to me than Melody Time.
I mean, I keep forgetting about the entertaining visual elements of Dumbo, but like at the same time,
yeah, and memorability is a big thing too, where if you really can't remember certain parts of a movie, then, you know, it's not that, oh, maybe it's better than I think it is. It's no, the fact that you can't remember parts of it means that it probably has a home down at the bottom of the list because it wasn't memorable for you.
Yeah, like what it is that movie is perfect fodder. It's one of those things where like it is less than the sum of its parts, and therefore it's perfect fodder to be cut up and put into like a movie of short compilations or a Disney sing-along picture.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, like a couple years ago, Disney released a American Legends DVD finally that has Johnny Appleseed, Pecos Bill, a story about a train engineer that's based on a true story from like a couple of years after this, and a brand new one based on
I need to look that
John Henry.
Wait, let me see, because I couldn't remember. Yeah, John Henry. Okay. I was trying to remember because I was like, for the longest time, I remembered John Henry's like story because, you know, as growing up in West Virginia, of course, everyone knows John Henry. Yeah. But I couldn't remember like his name, and that was messing me up. And then whenever you said train engineer, I'm like, oh, is that him? So then I looked it up, and no, it is. It's not. It's John. Anyway, yeah,
it's different. Train engineer is a different guy from John Henry, but John Henry was a steam guy.
Yeah. Well, and he was fought against the steam engine.
Yeah,
or whatever.
I loved the story of John Henry growing up.
Sad, but good.
Two stories that I really loved growing up were specifically like John Henry and Harriet Tubman.
Oh yeah, well yes, she's freaking legend. She, you know what? We need to rework our American legends. We really do. There's
Sacagawea. Yeah. She's got to go in there somewhere.
Yeah. I would say we could do Pocahontas, but I feel like even with the best of intentions, she's been in the limelight far too much, and it's like people will always get the wrong idea about her.
Pocahontas is a real cut your losses kind of scenario. Yeah. Because like at the end of the day, she prevented a guy from being executed because she loved him. Yeah. And where did that lead?
But at the same time, she was a child, and Disney... Speaking, knock knock, who is it?
Hey,
Disney racism. And they completely changed the perception of Pocahontas, and so it just was, ugh.
Yeah, that's a cut your losses scenario.
Yeah. But yes, they need to completely redo the American Legends things. Anyway, yay, ranking, and we did it, We did
it, but unfortunately, this might be it, Abby.
What might be it?
It's the late 40s, and the studio is in shambles. The war is over, Abby.
Oh.
And we're all out of money. What are we going to do?
Oh, no.
You know
What are we going to do?
For the third time in the company's history, we're going to make the movie that saves the company.
Whoa. What's that movie going to be?
Cinderella, baby. Back to form. Every time you got to save the company, you just make another princess movie.
That's the Disney way.
It really is. Up into the modern era, too. It's wild.
They always return. All roads lead to Disney princesses.
Mm-hmm. So, and we'll dive into that one next time when we dissect the mouse.
I don't know what that was.
Dissecting the Mouse would like to thank the artists and editors who have been involved. Morgan, Eric, the Cowboy, and Connor. Links to the artists and a bibliography of our sources can be found in the expanded credits. We would also like to thank the researchers, Abby and Nate. Nate would like to thank his library co-workers. As it is a review based on subjective opinion, Dissecting the Mouse is not intended to be a scholarly source. Thank you for listening. Just imagine once we get sponsored by Blue Apron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the confidence there once we get sponsored.
I mean, they sponsor everyone and their grandma, you know? Like, they're practically pulling people off the streets and putting them in a recording booth.
Putting them in a Blue Apron?
Pick them up off the street, put them in a Blue Apron, stick them in a booth, and say, you do a podcast now. Now advertise our product.
You do podcast. That would be funny if they like just randomly had interns just start podcasts just so that they could promote Blue Apron.
Yeah. They're out there like doing their best like Superman villain impersonation, going cast before pod.
And that is a reference that I do understand.
You've seen the Superman movies?
Nope.
Oh.